Hi, I'm Michael Gonzales, and I went from bagging groceries to $100 million worth of sales, and I'm one of the passionate few. I love the interview today. I hope people get inspired, really learn from my humble beginnings on how to build a business, all the mindset necessary to really go for your dreams and become one of the passionate few.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Passionate Few podcast. Today we have one of my good friends. He's a badass online entrepreneur who sold over $100 million worth of tea. But more importantly, he's a good human being, none other than my good friend, Michael Gonzales, aka the Tea CEO on Instagram. Mike, thanks so much for being on the show today, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Excited to unpack your story here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Now, before we get started, I just want to give a quick and huge shout out to our sponsor, Mindcore Technologies. You see, the truth is, if you're a business owner going into 2023 and you're concerned with either having a cybersecurity breach, the frustration with finding IT solutions to your challenges, or you're just spending too much money on it, well, you're in luck because Mindcore Technologies can help you with exactly that. Want to find out more? Simply book a call in the description down below for your free cybersecurity assessment and IT audit.
So, all right. So give the audience a little bit of context because you built at a time on social media one of the fastest growing e-commerce companies leveraging influencer marketing. People like Kylie Jenner, Kim Kardashian. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But for people who maybe haven't heard of you, a lot of them probably heard of the product. So can you give a little context as to your claim to fame, so to speak?
So my claim to fame is Fit Tea. It's a
Mm-hmm.
detox wellness brand I started in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically a brainchild of necessity. At the time, I was trying to lose weight, and I was dabbling in e-com and SEO, and I really didn't know what path I was going on. I was working on a job I didn't really like, and I was always like an entrepreneur, but didn't really know which path I wanted to go. And then someone was like, oh, you should try detox teas to lose weight. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I went to the whole looking into the market, tried a bunch of like detox teas, and really they were all just like poorly made, really low quality ingredients, just no branding whatsoever, and really low in cost. And so like I was like super obsessed with Steve Jobs at the time in Apple. I was like, how can I make a premium brand of this and charge like quadruple the amount? And
Right.
I loved tea because it was like really light. I was like, at the time, I was like looking for things that would be, e-commerce. How can I ship this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just really fortunate to have this moment in time when Instagram was very new in its infancies. And I decided to go all in on it, and it exploded, right? Like I became a household name because of how aggressive we were. And that's pretty much my, my claim to fame is just how aggressive I was with early social media, early influencer marketing, and just overall branding with celebrity. And it literally blew up way bigger than I thought. Like I thought I was going to sell, like 16 bags a month was enough for me to quit my job at the time. And I didn't think it was going to be what ended up this giant wave and millions of dollars in sales and craziness.
And you guys today, you cleared over $100 million in sales from Fit Tea.
$100 million, mostly through e-com, retail, and Amazon. Super big blessing, unbelievable growth. And I mean, tea is really high margin as it is. Like even if you're selling it for like $12.99, but we were selling it for $25 and $45. And so the margins, and we were doing everything internal. Like a lot of companies, they go to manufacturers, they have people make it, and, you get inherent costs along the way, but we were doing everything internal. So like the margins were, it made for a really fast growth. I mean,
wow. And take us back. How old were you at the time when you first came across the idea and started Fit Tea?
I think I was 24. I think it was 8 years ago. So I'm 36 now.
So 24. And at the time, had you had other entrepreneurial hustles, businesses you tried? Were you already entrepreneurial minded? Like,
yeah.
What were you going through?
So I dabbled in a lot of different things. My early professions were very similar to Fit Tea, cut it, bag it, sell it. I started really focusing on like e-commerce around 2005. I started like learning about like SEO and Google, and then Amazon was really primarily the first like dab into like e-commerce as I know it, right? So I would go to the Edgewater High School at the time. They had a Lost and Found, and all the books would pile up there. And I would go up to the faculty like, what happens to these books? And they're like, oh, we throw them away. So I was like, I bet you I could sell these online. I'll just grab them all up. And at first I was just
That's
pulling
smart.
around.
Yeah.
But holy crap, like these books would be 200, 300, $400 a pop.
Yeah.
And I'd put on Amazon and they would sell. I mean,
that's smart.
And it worked too for a long period of time. I did that for like, I don't know, 7 months.
So you literally would get excess books from the library.
From Lost and Found.
From the Lost and Found.
Yeah.
And then just sell them online.
Yeah. I would put them on eBay. At the time, eBay was trying to compete with Amazon in the books sector. So it was like half.com.
Yeah.
And then Amazon was obviously, it was the biggest e-commerce place. But now it's obviously outrageous. But back then, nobody was really, it was very early e-com. Like that, 2005 to 2008.
And that was your first foray into e-com.
Yeah, because it taught me the knowledge, and a little bit of eBaying too. It taught me the knowledge of like you put something online, put a value on it, pack it, and then ship it. Like that logic.
And the belief that there's buyers that will pay you.
Right. And then understanding like customer service and being honest of your descriptions. And because when you're young, you're like, oh, the book's amazing condition. Bang. You put it on there. And then you get a bunch of bad reviews and you go, damn, why did I do that? And then you're begging the person, please take it down. I'm a young kid.
Yeah.
But I did that. So I did it first at Edgewater and I realized, okay, it's 100% profit. It's books that are lost. And I started going to school in the local area. Like, can I take your Lost and Found books? I'm like, who the heck are you? I'm a student, And I did that for a while.
How much did you make doing that?
Probably like, I want to say like 15 grand, maybe 18 grand or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I accumulated this money. I go to college and I start investing and I lose almost all of it. Like all the principal that I had made from selling the books online. I think it was like right when like the big housing crash happened, and I had to start over again. So I graduate UCF with a business major. I'm thinking I'm a business guy. I'm going to be getting all these opportunities. But in reality was I entered like one of the worst times in American histories economically. And there was literally no hiring. So like the first year after college, I bagged groceries at Publix. I just literally had to hustle, make money as I could. And as I was applying for places to see if I can get an opportunity, and that was a really scary time because you work so hard to get educated. You think you're ready for the world. You have, I had a specific amount of knowledge, not just on marketing, but also like the new wave of like what businesses were going to become. Like I was super obsessed with like YouTube, but I didn't really do as much like you made a bunch of content. You started working really hard at doing that. I knew the game, but I didn't get into it. And I understood like search, understood like the wave of like video being important to businesses. And so every time I went to a business, I tried to be like, oh, I understand the future. Like, let me help you, update your business. But nobody was hiring.
Yeah, dang. And so at that time, are you thinking, man, I want to build a multi-million-dollar business. I want to be a big business builder. Because you said you were into Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
So walk me through, like, you might have been bagging bags at Publix, but in your mind, what were you fantasizing about doing, or what was your game plan? Did you have a dream at that time? Like, walk me through that period.
So I was super obsessed with like making myself better, no matter what the economic conditions were at the time or what my opportunities were. I was going to be ready to walk through the door, right? Like I was always like immensely studying like Tony Robbins and Think and Grow Rich and
love Tony Robbins.
All these like self-help gurus. I was reading their content, just flooding my mind with like the beliefs that I can do anything, and setting like bigger goals of my certain situation, and not having the fear that I can say that to myself. Because a lot of times that's like the first road, because a lot of people want to be entrepreneurs. They want to do these successful things, but they're not mentally even prepared. They haven't put the work into themselves to walk through the door when the door opens. So really at that time I was, bagging groceries. I was studying like crazy. That was the other thing. Graduated from college. Yes, I was bagging groceries, but I never stopped studying. I never really said, "Oh, this is it. I'm done." Now, and even to this day, fast forward the clocks, I'm a ferocious studier. Like I think people are always like, "Oh, what's a good book to read?" or "Should I do that?" But in reality, do you really study the topic? Like I almost put myself like if it was a class, like I'm gonna have a quiz at the end, I'm gonna have to regurgitate this information and really show people that I know what I'm talking about. So back then, I was the same. Like those habits haven't really changed. So I really worked really hard on, building my self-belief, working on like what I wanted to do. I'd write these vision boards and manifest and go from topic to topic. And I was always at the library. Big believer in the library. A lot of people don't take advantage of their local library. You literally can order books to your house, read them, and send them back. It's so crazy that people don't do that. So a ton of that. And I was like studying everything that was happening in the internet. I was like, what's new? What's popping? I was on Gizmodo. I was on dig.com. I was on Reddit. I was like constantly studying Black Hat forums. I was on Warrior forums, all these like places where these people were building these businesses. And I was like, I can do this. I know I can do it. Just didn't have the capital means yet to build anything, right?
And at that time, you were pretty broke, right?
Pretty broke. Had like maybe like $500 at a time. You know, like really had no money.
Yeah.
And then I got an opportunity to go work at this company in Orlando called Melrose Management. Owner was a multimillionaire, pretty eclectic guy, kind of like crazy all over the place. And he ran this HOA firm in Orlando, and he kind of wanted to modernize his business. Like I came in and they had like DOS. It was crazy. They didn't even have like workable, like their agents had to go do stuff that were like paper driven, faxes. I was like, this is crazy. You know, my whole world was like, this whole digital wave is coming. And I come into this business and they're stuck in ancient Egypt. And I'm like, all right, first thing, you know, update computers. And I was really obsessed with Apple. So everything became Apple and everything was cloud based. And like the business definitely like became modernized the short window of time I was there. Because it would, you know, when you have a person like me who's driven.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Listen, we'll get right back to the video in a sec, but I just want to let you know that if you're watching this video and you're enjoying it, good, because that's exactly why we make these videos. And also, if you're a 7 to 8 figure entrepreneur and you're looking to grow your business with videos just like this, but maybe don't know how, or you've tried stuff and you're stuck, but you don't want to leave money on the table and you know you want content to be a part of your strategy, you just don't know how to grow that brand, grow your revenue, create videos, and scale your revenue with it, well, you're in luck, because we actually specialize in helping 7, 8, and 9 figure entrepreneurs do exactly that. So if you'd like to learn from those strategies and get a free personalized one-on-one session 100% free, you can simply book a call at the link in the description down below to learn more and hop on a call with our team to see how we might be able to help you. So anyways, just want to hop on here, let you guys know that, and thank you guys. But with no further ado, let's get right back to the show. Enjoy.
Like, and if this is you, this is literally the same kind of thing. Let's say you're working a 9 to 5, which is totally fine. You're working on yourself, you're doing your self-help stuff. But that window of time is temporary. It's hard to contain a person like that. Your energy, your blessing, whatever you want to, your manifestations are bursting out of the seams of those businesses.
Right.
And so, you know, during that short window of time, you know, you can't really stay in that place. The people can't hold you down there. So even while I was there modernizing everything, I was like, I'm ready for the next thing. What it's going to be, what I'm going to work on. And I had all these ideas. I was constantly like throwing stuff on when it was ready, I was going to shoot at it, right? But I just kept working. They gave me an opportunity, so I always like think back to Melrose as a huge blessing. Jack also, I learned a lot of lessons from him because he was a successful businessman. How to operate a business, how to carry yourself in meetings. I had never done that before. I thought I knew, going to college and formal education.
So you got a bunch of experience from all that. And then I'm curious, what made you, like when you found the tea, you were looking at all these different things. What about the tea made you go, oh, that's it. That's the idea I want to put my all into? I mean, you mentioned how you came across it.
Yeah.
But what made you, from all the ideas, all the stimulus, all the stuff you were reading, why that idea? What about it made you go, I want to pull the trigger on it?
You know, it's kind of crazy, but it was more personal for myself. Like I wanted to lose weight at the time. So I tried a bunch of teas and I was like, man, I bet you I could make a really great product and it could taste good. And because I had tried artisan teas before. But really, primarily, it was like I knew it was low cost. Like if you were going to look at it logically, I knew it was low cost. I knew it was going to be light to ship. I knew I could make something taste really good for fairly inexpensive cost. And I knew I could afford it, right? Like it was within my budget that I could buy the items and do the marketing. Like it was still within the parameters of the budget that I could do.
So it was a controllable all-around business. There wasn't too many loose things that, So you saw it as a way to control the controllables versus a bigger operation that might have been more operationally complex.
Well, at the time too, I was also looking, how can I quit my job?
Right.
And be my own boss and do my own thing and, just cover the bills. It wasn't like this, I'm going to make the next wave. I had no idea that was going to be the byproduct of what I was, trying to build at the time. But obviously it happened really fast. Like, Fit literally, I had 10 grand to start the business. That's all I had. I had saved for 2 years and that was the money that I had to start a business. And I knew I could buy a box worth, which was, I think at the time, it was like $180 for a box worth of tea. and buy the labels, buy the bags, make the website, and I knew like the overall test wouldn't cost me more than like $500, you know. And I think it ended up being like the initial like first day startup cost, everything all in was like not even $900 or something.
Wow. And so your step 1, step 2, step 3 was what? Step 1, you reached out to tea manufacturers, or like what was from literally knowing zero? Like walk me through, because I think people listening are most interested in that. How do you go from conception of an idea to start taking steps when you've never done this, right? The imperfect action steps. What's imperfect action step 1, 2, 3 once you had the idea?
The beauty is your cell phone is free. Like obviously you got to pay for your cell phone, but I'm saying the logic of like you can pick up the phone and call people,
right?
Is, you know, that's a free endeavor. So like I literally picked up the phone. I was like, I wonder how much tea costs. Like I didn't once I had the ideology that I'm going to do this health and wellness product, I was like, how do I make it? You know, do I call China? Like, where do I get tea from? You know? So first I was like, I'm going to call a bunch of like local tea places and just see. Most of them were outside my scope. They're like, oh, minimum orders, you know, it's pallet and it's 30 grand. I was like, well, fuck me. That's not going to work, you know?
Yeah.
And again, it was within the parameters of my current status, like realistic. This was my budget and this is what I could do. And I called and called and called. And I never really gave up on, I'm going to keep calling until I find the right person. And like, sometimes you got to kiss the frog. A lot of people don't want to do that part of like the startup of a business. They just want to like A and then, okay, B, you know, like there's no like in between, you know, the 25 calls or 50 calls.
Yeah.
Educating yourself on the industry. Cause you know, I didn't know anything about tea.
So that I want to zoom in right there. Cause so that was one of the biggest catalysts. Catalysts is the fact that you didn't just call 1 or 2 and then be like, I called, didn't work. You didn't call 3 or 4. I mean, how many was it that you called?
It was probably like 55 or something.
Yeah.
50 plus.
So that right there is the magic. Most people won't even do that.
You gotta turn over the rocks, you know, keep looking for the right fit. Because there was a few companies, like there was one in Philadelphia, which I'm not going to name, that was close. Like I almost did business with them before I did business with Tea Guys. That's the company that I primarily did business with. And they just it didn't feel right. Like even the prices were quite right, but didn't feel right. The other company were known for artisan teas. They were known for making these really high quality products. And I was like, man, I like that aspect because Steve Jobs was so fucking obsessed with like, how can I make this so perfect, you know?
Yeah.
That even the inside has to look nice, you know? And so when I got samples and was trying a bunch of different products, theirs was outstanding. The way it's like, even just opening it, I was like, oh man, this is amazing. Compared to the other like 25 samples, I was like, this is shit. They're just, you know, they would say it's artisan, it's amazing. And some of them weren't bad products, but they just weren't fit tea, right? And
so step 1 was you make the calls, you find the supplier. Step 2, 3, what were they?
So then you got to do sampling. You got to understand what's going into the product. You got to make sure that other people like it. I'll have other people try it. And then finally deciding on, you know, this is the one for me. Negotiate as much as you can up front. I mean, in the beginning, when you're only buying $180 worth of product, it's not much negotiating, but a little bit of negotiating. And then finalizing, okay, this is what it's going to be. You know, and a lot of times it's like break the eggs. Like Fit Tea, I was really fortunate with the name. You know, I originally was going to be like, I had dawned on me Fit Tea was like, literally, it's crazy. I tell people all the time, I was really fortunate because it was like by far the first name I wanted. Right? I was like, oh, I like this name, Fit Tea. It seems like cool. Went to look it up and it was an auction. So I was like, all right, I'm going to bid on it. But if I lose, I'm going to be something else, you know? And ended up losing the auction. So I thought I was going to be like weightloss.detox. Some crazy bull crap.
Yeah.
And I was so discouraged. I remember that first night, just like, fuck, this idea is going to be trash. And I couldn't get the username on Instagram. We were Fat Loss Tea for like forever in the beginning. Which I didn't want to be. Like, I didn't want to be this like super hard claim type product. And then the next day, the register called me and said, oh, you know, the person that beat you, they don't want to pay. You get it for regular registration. So I got it for $16, fittea.com.
Wow.
Huge blessing. Unbelievable. And then from that moment, it was like, okay, we got to make logos. And like, how do I do that? So I drew it by hand, scanned it, you know, and make a label. How do I fucking make a label? I was like, I'll make a sticker and I'll go to the sticker shop and get them printed. Where am I going to pack it? You know, bag. Yeah. So I was like looking up bags on Amazon, like plastic bags for food grade product. You know, I didn't know.
So you're just winging it. You're just winging every
just,
step of the way. Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, how am I going to pack this? Like so I was like, okay, cut it, bag it, sell it. No different than any other profession. And so I was like, well, we do a half a cup for a 14-day, and I'll measure it. Like, is there 14 teaspoons here for at least for, and a full cup for a 28-day. Bang, that's our measurement, right? And I was like, I'm gonna seal this. Like, you don't think about this stuff, Mm-hmm. And so we'd seal it by hand with a hand sealer. It's like a little iron. And like the first batch came in, it was just me, my mom, and my stepdad at the time was totally against this idea because it took me forever, mind you, to find a job. I was bagging groceries. And he was like, this is crazy. What the hell are you? The whole house smells like tea. My mom was like, as always, my champ. She was just like, this is going to be amazing. Yeah. You're going to be great. They're going to know us for this. And I was like, okay.
So she was super supportive.
Super. Huh? She was over there.
She was like your Donda. Yeah.
Bagging. Oh, yeah, definitely my Donda. 100%. And like that energy, you need that in the beginning because you don't even, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. You're just over there bagging tea. And even yourself, you're like, what the hell am I fucking doing in the house? And so I'm bagging tea. We're sealing. We're putting stickers. I'm still building websites and don't have any. I had no idea what was about to happen. I had no clue what my whole life was about to change. I thought I was going to do this and work and like come back and ship it at night and go back to work.
Yeah.
So Instagram is just this crazy, like unbelievable blessing because I knew it was going to be big. I like the real change for me was when they put the links in the profiles because originally it didn't have that. And when they put the links in the profiles, I can drive traffic to a website here, Mm-hmm. So I was like, I'll make, fat loss tea and start posting photos. And then everyone that followed me, because it was my personal page, they're like, what the hell is this? I don't follow this, And they're like, is this you? Are you making fat loss tea? I'm like, yeah. I'm trying this business idea and see, Instagram be this thing. But it was really the catalyst of understanding that the popular page was this like amazing traffic source that nobody was thinking about. Everyone that hit the popular page, there wasn't really that big of influencers quite yet on Instagram. I think like the biggest were like 400K or maybe less. So I just started like, okay, how can I contact these people? Because you gotta remember, there was no DMs. People did have their kicks on. I'm dating myself, but they had their kicks on their profiles. Mm-hmm. And
Kicks was the app from back in the day, right? Yep.
It was like a messaging, like pre DM times, or some of them had their emails, and so I just ferociously just contacted people like, hey, I'll pay you $25, and I'll send you product, and would you promote me? Or I'll send you a picture, like even cut to the chase. Like I'll literally send you a picture, you just say that Fitzy's amazing. Mm-hmm. And I booked like something in the range of like, I want to say like $2,000 to $3,000 worth of ads. And I had no clue what was about to happen. Mm-hmm. Paid for the ads. It was a Friday. I remember it. Friday, I had this was before Shopify. So I was still pre-Shopify website. So everything was coming in through like PayPal. Mm-hmm. Jerry-rigged links on a website that I had created, went directly to checkout. And I had PayPal open, and I got my first order. Like within minutes, we got our first order. And I was like, okay, great. This is awesome. Yeah. And you got another order, then another. And then they started coming in like rainfall, like machine gun fire.
First day,
we did something like $13,000 in sales.
Wow.
And I was blown away. I was like, and watching the analytics too. Because at the time I was kind of like obsessed with like driving traffic from Google, and you would see like 2-3 people on, analytics live. And this was like hundreds on this hunkadory website that I had created. And then, obviously I didn't have enough tea to fulfill all these orders. It was just an avalanche of orders. And I didn't even understand, like, it's so stupid looking back now, but like, I was going to have to go ship this shit. You know what I mean? I didn't even have a label printer. I didn't have like the basics even remotely ready. And so then I had all this cash all of a sudden, and I'm messaging people like, hey, this is all made by hand and artisan, and it's amazing, and give us some time. Yeah. And it started like that, not knowing what I was doing, but, I was walking the path. I was ready for it though. Mm-hmm. I tell people all the time, I literally quit my job literally that day. I was going to do like a 2-week thing. and at first I came back for like maybe 4 days. I think it was like 4 days. And I was running it through Jack at the time, the owner of that business. Like, I'm getting this like traction, and what do you think? And maybe we can be business partner. He had a warehouse, so I didn't really know like what I had quite yet. And he was like, yeah, we can do something, blah blah blah. But he wasn't like 100%,
Yeah, gun ho about it. Yeah.
And then at the same time, I was really distracted. Like I no longer gave a fuck about the job. I wanted to go do this thing, and I was like, I know this is like going to be big. And
did the second and third day sales continue, like the momentum?
So I didn't buy shout outs again at that point because I didn't have enough inventory. But so it took, so I bought more inventory, like literally took all the money to buy inventory again, kept maybe like 4 or 5K to run shouts again, and rushed, went back to Oliver. Oliver was like, primary guy that was making the tea, and he was like, what? Like, and I called him back. I was like, oh yeah, I want 10 grand worth of tea. He's like, wait, what, you want how much? Because it's not normal, most tea houses buy a box at a time. So I'm like calling him every day. I need tea, man. This is on fire. And driving him crazy. Like, man, please give me some tea.
Yeah.
And so when we got our first batch, like I have a photograph of like these boxes coming to my mom's house. Because mind you, I'm living in my mom's condo. And all these boxes are showing up to my mom's house. My dad's like, what the hell what are we doing here? And my mom is obviously super supportive. The whole house smells like tea. Like it's a very fragrantly, smelling tea.
Yeah.
It literally was leaking to other people's apartments. Like you could smell from our condo to the other condos, the tea. But it was such an exciting time. Like I tell people to really, like, if you start a business in the infancies of that business, really take a moment and like think about what you're doing, because it doesn't last. It changes, like the essence. Like you hear about like rappers talk about, like, oh, my first album, I had this energy and this vibe, and I never could capture that again. It's the same for entrepreneurship in the beginning, because you don't really know the game. It's so exciting. It's like dating for the first time, like dating a girl for like holding her hand.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was super rewarding, those infancy moments, and getting the first batches of tea. Like the second batch came in. And then we did probably literally double the money, because now I knew the game, right? Like I understood, like, oh, if I buy like 40 of them, and then it became like this cat and mouse game for a long time of how much tea can I buy, how much shouts can I do, back and forth, and then like building the infrastructure necessary to support that. Like, oh, I need a label printer. Oh, I need a bunch of envelopes to put the tea in. Oh, I got to do customer service now. This is a new thing. All these emails are coming in.
Yeah, and you're just learning, putting one foot in front of the other, learning this stuff on the fly. Now, talk to me about the influencer shout-outs, because that was really smart. What year was this that you were doing that?
So this was 2013.
Okay, 2013, because obviously the landscape has changed to date, so it's a little bit different. But in 2013, I mean, you keep doing this and catch momentum so much so that you get in touch with Kim Kardashian, Kylie Jenner. I mean, you start getting huge influencer shout-outs. Can you walk us through some of the biggest names you've had shout out?
So the
Fit Tea?
The time frames go from like 2013 to 2015, like end of 2014. I start thinking about celebrity. Like, how can I get celebrity? Because it's no different, the game, right? Once you have a certain amount of budget, you can reach more people if you can get people that had more reach. It might, like that was my logic. So I didn't care. Like I literally was like, anyone that had reach, I will buy from you. I didn't care who it was. Like it would be a porn star to any. It didn't matter. If they had reach and likes, I wanted my tea on their page. So I was obsessively calling people. Same principle.
Yeah.
Like who's on your roster, like talent wise,
Yeah.
or who do you know?
Yeah.
Right. And met a lot of really great people, interconnected people that had access to these individuals. Whether there were super high celebrity or even like low end like influencer, right? Like they're not celebrities, but they have really big reach on the internet. And it took about like 2 years before I started getting really high list, A-list celebrity. And it came from Tim Ferriss's book, 4 Hour Workweek, because that was one of the books that really influenced the beginnings of like Fit Tea. Because I was like, how can I make a business that I only have to work 4 hours of, which in reality, look back now, it's like it turns into 40-hour work days.
Yeah.
The complete opposite of what you think it would be. But in his book, he talks about like you literally can reach anybody. Like he puts all these like really practical, and I still think if you read the book today, it's still worthy a read, because the logic is like, damn, he's right. You can literally reach anybody, and if you have a budget and actually can make them an offer, most likely they'll post. It's crazy. And, the early days with the Kardashians was outside the scope of like how you normally would do. You go through an agent, and then the talent agent would reach out to the talent, and then you'd book a meeting. But back then it was like people knowing people. And Kylie was by far one of the first ones. She was really young, and we got that deal done, and she posted, and it was unbelievable. Like I was like, how many posts? Like it was like ridiculous. The like messages going back, like how many can she post like in a row for me? Can I get like 10?
Yeah. This is Kylie Jenner. What year?
I think it was end of 2014 or early 2015.
Wow. So you're talking Keeping Up with the Kardashians, peak Kylie Jenner starting.
I think like her first post when I didn't even. That's so funny. I didn't really plan stuff too. Like I was just aggressively just like trying to keep all the plates spinning, because I always like compare that to a business, right? You got one plate spinning in the front, and then you spin the next one. You just try to keep them all spinning, right? I didn't have enough inventory to cover like a huge marketing campaign, but I was like, let's go, keep going. We'll figure it out. And she did like an unbelievable amount of sales. Like it was like 400 racks like in a day.
400,000 a day?
Like it was, to be honest, it was like 360,000, but 400K sounds better. So I'll stick with 400K.
Wow. In one day.
In one day off her post. It was just
Kylie Jenner.
Unbelievable amount of traffic. Unbelievable amount. It was just so overwhelming too.
Yeah.
And it's like also terrifying because it's just so many eyeballs. Like it's like a dagger right at you, And I tell people too, like some businesses, they can never handle there's side effects to going that big, right? The bigger you become, the more eyeballs, more legal, more eyeballs from places that you might not want within your business and within your spirit, right? Like you didn't know. And I would dare say that to, like, if I could talk to myself back then, like, yo, like chill. Like I get your ambitions and your growth, and you want to do these amazing things. But that you probably did. Probably didn't need to do some. Like the business was doing amazing, and then it's like you kind of hurt the business too, because now you've sold way more and you've reached way higher than you even have the capacity to support within the business. So I'd rather
things start breaking.
And people don't know what to do, and they're turning you, and you don't even know what to do. But in hindsight, I think it's was really a great time to like start any product. Like that moment in time, like it's pre-Facebook buying Instagram, it's pre-algorithm Facebook.
How much did you pay? Instagram. How much did you pay her? Is there
13K was my first post with her.
Wow.
Yeah, and I thought that was so much money. I thought that like I was like, oh my god, she wants what?
Yeah,
she, you know what I mean? Like I was just
because
like,
now they could take like $1 million a post.
Yeah, $1 million easily. Probably even that's not even their numbers anymore, because like they've become more of like business people now. They have people within their camps that are Michael Gonzales. They get the game, They know how to make branding, and I also dare say Kanye coming into their lives has this huge impact on how they viewed businesses too, because look at Kim really elevated when she made that new line of products. And not to say that, I always say Kris Jenner is the GOAT. Like I've met her in person. She is a solid businesswoman.
Momager.
She is something else. Like I tell people all the time, she doesn't get enough kudos for the amount of management she has done to build a business conglomerate in that fashion too, and to keep a family, tight together, because money changes everything, and that level of success, even me just touching, like how like when you put your hand above like a stove, that's as far as I've gotten with the Kardashians, right?
Yeah, and
even that's like, whoa, shit, that thing is, I couldn't handle that, and so she doesn't get the credit that she deserves. So it was, I'm really blessed that I got to even experience that from like, the humble beginnings of 10 racks from my.
Of course, man. And you did that multiple times with her, right, Kylie?
Yeah, we've done a ton of business, but millions and millions of dollars with the Kardashians.
And then you guys did Kim, right? What was that like? Was that later?
That was much later. So Kim was always the Pokemon I was trying to catch, right? Like I always looked at like celebrity like that. It's so egotistical, and it is what it is. Once you get to a certain point of building a business and you do it in that manner,
gamify it mentally.
Yeah. Like every person, I've never done a post with that person. I really inspired to work with them, and they were always like, she was always eluding me. Like I never could catch her, never could get her to do I got all the other family members to do it, but for her, and rightfully so, she wanted what she was worth. It took a lot longer. I wish we would have gotten it during the peaks of like Instagram, because I think it would have been insane. But it is what it is. She did, she did Fit Shakes at the time, and she did Fit Tea, and she did a few other products, and it was amazing. Kim K is, one of the biggest, most famous people on the earth. So even have her touch my product or even interact with my product was super cool. But when we finally got her and I wired all that money, it was a significant investment to go, with Kim.
Do you feel comfortable sharing what it was at that time?
Honestly, I don't really remember, but it was over $1 million.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was the biggest wire I had ever sent at that point. Like, I remember sitting in my office and I'm hovering over the computer. I'm like, holy shit. Like, this is so much money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for what it is, like, think about it. It's like 3 posts on social media.
Yeah.
And what's cool is that you can go back in time and look at her profile and it's still there. And it's like such a accomplishment too. Like, for me, such humble beginnings of Fit Tea, where I was just in my mom's crib and my dad's fighting with me about the smell of tea, and we were bagging tea by hand, and just it really such an elevation of to the brand when you do something like that, and it opened a ton of doors for us. Like, we ended up expanding really big into retail at that point. Such a pivot into the business too. Walmart, Target, the CVS, the Walgreens, the GNCs of the world start knocking on your door when you start doing stuff like that, and they want you. It's not like you're pitching to them.
So you have negotiation leverage.
You have leverage. You can definitely do a lot more than you can. Although the landscape has changed now.
Sure.
Social media has changed. What people pay attention to now has changed. But at that time, it definitely was the right way to go to build a brand.
Yeah.
So it worked well.
Now, when you look at like the landscape now of business, social media, digital marketing, people selling their products and services online, how do you see it changing, right? Because long gone are the days where there's not that many competitors. I mean, in every product category, there's lots of competitors. There's lots of influencers too, right? There's people even diversifying to micro-influencers, because the marketing messages back then, when a few people would post or a influencer would post a product, it wasn't that common. Now, everyone's doing it, and audiences can kind of sniff stuff out. And then, nowadays people want to promote their own products, or these influencers want to start their own products instead of do just shout outs, right? So the landscape has changed. How have you seen it change most? And what advice would you give to a young Michael Gonzales, man or woman, trying to start a business in this present day with that same attitude?
So now the landscape is people buy from people, right? It was the same back when I started, but I never was a voice within the business. Like, Fit Tea was this elusive, unmanned business, right?
It was a faceless company, so to speak.
Faceless. There was no Walt Disney. I just never felt that I matched my demo, right? If I can go back in time, I would tell myself I was perfect for my demo. That was me, putting a self-limiting belief within myself. And I could easily have been talking about the business and been really in front of the camera and really in front of the business. But I never did. Fast forward the clocks to now, I think it's impossible to build a brand without really having a very forward-facing person, a Steve Jobs persona, a Walt Disney persona. To
sell the vision, the dream, the product,
just to be committed to like the change of what social media is now. You have all this short type content now, all these short platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram Reels, all these platforms are moving to where you're talking within a minute to somebody to gather their attention, develop a relationship with them every day. And it requires you to be totally intimate on everything you're doing. So like, if I could go back in time, I would have been telling people my struggles. I'd have been totally open, like, oh, I'm working with my mom in the house. Imagine all that content, all the parties I did, all these cool moments that I wish that I have memories of that are so important to the business and my life, and sharing that to the world. And people would eat that up. So a lot of times when I talk to early business owners or even big companies, right, I'm like, who's the person? Who's the voice? Because people want that. They don't buy from brands anymore. The Kardashians have shown that if you develop a voice and you show that voice within the internet and let that proceed to be like a brand, it becomes bigger than the brand itself. And I feel like the same thing goes from the person that's starting up. if you're willing to commit to making content and really being transparent and really showing your intimacies, your flaws, your dings in your armor, and just showing that to the internet and just being totally committed to it every single day, people will start to fuck with you hard. Like they will give you more than like, oh, buy my brand, buy my brand, buy my brand. And it's more like, oh, I'm trying to get raw materials and we're working today. I'm here with my dad and we're packing a bunch of, tea. It smells great in here. And yeah, it's a struggle, but I'm so excited to get these out to you. That intimacy, really that transparency is very big resonance to people that are willing to take out their wallet, open it up, and put their credit card to whatever means that they're going to pay you with. And I feel like you need to do that now. It's a necessary. Like it's no longer a kinda, and you can't not do it because you're ultimately going to fail. Like if you just take pictures of your bags and talk about like just kinda, if you're not 110% committed, it just won't get the traction that you're looking for.
So if you would have started it today, present day, the thing you're saying you would have done differently, correct me if I'm wrong, is you would have been more forward facing with the brand, like as the CEO, as the founder.
Yeah, I would have talked about all the stuff we're doing, all the work we're working on, how we're doing it, my life, and the entrepreneurial journey is such an inspiring thing to so many people. Like people remotely want to do what I did. Right? Like just even a taste of it, they want to do that so badly, but they don't have the courage to take the leap. Right. So a lot of times they watch it on the internet, other people doing it. And I wish I would have did that. I wish from the very, you know how much cool crap I did and stuff I don't even remember. People will remind me, they're like, oh, remember that one time you did that thing? I was like, oh shit, you're right. I did that. That was fucking dope, but nobody knows about it.
What are some of the craziest moments in running the business, whether it be crazy sales days or lawsuits or I'm sure you've seen it all.
Man, there's so many fun, like the early days of Fit Tea was a lot of setup stuff, right? But it's like how I would envision like, early Apple was, or like all these, like you hear about these brands that are partying. And so like, I always had this like, oh, I made it, like we're going to have a good time while we're doing this. It's not just a business. So it was always like all these like parties I was throwing at the office, and yet we're literally working and then we're drinking and partying at the same time. Like it was like a party house, and then like a lot of my close friends worked at the business, and there was like a lot of pranking going on, and
sales were up, sales were working.
Were buying in, we were killing the game, and I was living like a rock star within my I didn't even travel. Like I literally partied within my office with my team, and that was like always a celebration. So every time I'd be like, oh, we're doing 70s day, or we're doing 80s day, or we today we're just gonna get a limousine. I'll show up with like a mini horse. I don't know, just some random shit that I would come up with. And my staff would be like, what's next? And I wish we would have recorded that stuff,
Yeah,
like
that could have been a YouTube channel,
easily.
Right there.
Like my best friend would like prank people at the office and move the desk and put them up in the rafters, like this stuff. And like, you'd come out and your car would be gone. Like where's my car? And they're like, oh, it's at the mall, or like you come out and your whole car's filled with Fit Tea. Like there'd be like, 25,000 bags inside your car. Like literally open the door and it starts pouring out. And so a lot of that like early day fun type stuff, happening, all the setup shit, of course. I didn't the logic of a e-com business is not like rocket science. I tell people all the time, you're driving traffic to a website, you're building a trust with a customer, you're going to manufacture it, you're going to pack it, you're going to ship it, and make sure the person gets it, right? And with us, we were doing everything internally. I had a machine that did it. We did all our own manufacturing. So I had like a manufacturing side, and I had a shipping side, and I had like the customer service marketing side on one side. So a lot of that was being done, and which is like kind of like snooze fest when you think about it, but it's super important towards like, building a business.
And what was your acquisition channel at that time? Was it just Instagram, or like what was your framework in terms of what were you focusing on? What were the KPIs you were focused on in growing the business at that time?
So I keep a running kind of like pulse on my own businesses, where it's not probably the way a lot of people would do it. It's mostly cash flow. Like I would just look, okay, this is how much money I have. This is how much it costs. These are the logics of the cost. And, we're going to rinse and repeat. Most of the acquisition channel was Instagram, 99% of it. Some of it was SEO too. But I didn't run any paid media for like the first 5 years of the business.
It was just influencer shoutouts?
Everything was organic. Everything was Insta post. I was doing all the posting. So like I probably posted like 11,000 times, maybe more, 13,000 times on Instagram, which is insane when I think think back to it for the longest period of time. Like we would do, influencer shoots. They would get the content, then it would go all into my phone, and then I would literally just sit there screenshot. Like I'll literally be watching TV, screenshots. It was like every Saturday, and I would have like my whole 2-3 weeks worth of content, and then I would. At the time, you could do this. You can get away with like writing very similar captions, but I mostly focused on. Remember, it was pictures, not video. Mostly focused on the pictures and who the person was. And then I would do shout outs on Sundays. So I'd pay all the, pages or influencers. I would do everything on that day. And then, so that was set. And then every day, every few hours, I would post. Like I would whip out my phone, boop, 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 post, copy, paste the caption. And then every 3 hours for like 5 years, that's what I did. Like I'd whip out my phone, or I would like, at any given time, I'm like, when's the last time I posted? Like I would like, it became a part of your day,
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, I don't got nothing to post. And I was just going, I had like 15,000 options. I was like, okay, that's the one.
Yeah.
And post again. And, but I was like super,
and they were generating sales, huh?
Oh, thousands and thousands of dollars. Like for years, the business was minimally, even on my worst day, doing like 20K in revenue every day.
A day.
Yeah. For years and years and years. Like it would not break that cycle. And so that was like kind of like the pattern of the business. And then eventually that tactic became less effective.
Mm-hmm.
I knew the moment Facebook acquired Instagram that my time was done.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had done some Facebook stuff before the business. So I was like, fuck. Zuck is coming and to fuck this shit up, And I was right. Like he came and they acquired it, and it was fast. They changed the algorithm really quickly, and they changed the whole platform really. And you also got to think about time kept moving on. Mm-hmm. So more entrepreneurs started making products. There was more competition, not necessarily only in the health and wellness, but overall there was more and more options. So people were more inclined to buying stuff from other people and not buying from Fit because it was the only thing that was being promoted to them. Mm-hmm. And they also started, I would say every single year there would be some major competitor versus the business, right? And they would pick a lane that I was dominating in and then start imitating exactly what I was doing. So I would always look at the business from a theme page, influencer, celebrity, and then everything else was like accoutrement. So whether that was paid ads or, YouTube or any other channel would be like the extra stuff to the business of how I drive traffic. And it would always be like every year. So like one year it would be this company and they're doing, influencers really hard, or another company that all of a sudden now they're buying from everything page I buy from. And that's another detox company. And then a celebrity, same thing.
And so, just more and more and more.
And that would cause dings to the business. And I didn't realize like how important like building customer success stories, building really firm email lists. Obviously over time, I became more and more obsessed with those things and understood that how important it was.
How important is it for people listening to build an audience and own the data, email lists, phone numbers?
It's by far the most important thing. The longevity of your business requires you to keep filling that cup. Whether that's organic, like making video content, showing who you are, driving it to email, cell phone, name, address. And then the last like outliers is like pixelization, pixels from ad networks, and DMing. Like if you have the ability to talk to them through social media channels, those catalysts, if you become really obsessed with them and really work really hard on, email compliances, like the fundamentals of email, and cell phone, that means you can call them or text them and really work on building that customer power. It's unbelievable how much money companies leave on the table because they just don't do the basics. They don't make it where those acquisition channels are important to them because they maybe drive all their traffic from Facebook, and they're so like obsessed with the KPIs of, okay, I paid this much for an ad and this is what it convert, and they don't think about the wiggle room in the between. Where it's like, people don't work. They're not machines. They operate like this. You click an ad, they looked at it, they didn't buy it. They went to the store, they hung out with a homie, then they went to work out. You know what I mean? It just doesn't, it's not
doesn't quantify the humanity behind it.
Yeah. And a lot of times those other pieces of the puzzle are so much more valuable over time. And if you really focus on those and you really cultivate those, you can make millions and millions of dollars for a lot longer than just like, oh, I'm gonna buy a bunch of shout outs and I'm gonna just hammer.
And then you're not at the mercy of other people and the changing rates or the changing times or whatever. When you own the list, when you own your audience, when you own your brand, you're sort of recession proof in a certain context, right? And it gives you leverage to pivot. If you say you pivot businesses down the road, because then you got that brand equity. Like the Kardashians, like you mentioned, they could do anything they want.
Right.
They could get into food, they could get into health, they could get into beauty, they can get into any of these product categories because the name is bigger than the businesses, right?
Right.
And then they have ultimate leverage. And I love that point. And then now talk to me about, since I know you recently exited that business and you have kind of worked with some big name entrepreneurs, including most recently Ty Lopez, who I know he just bought a bunch of companies, including Pier 1 Imports, and he's been flipping them. And so I wanted to ask you, from your perspective, you know, being a high-level entrepreneur who's done over 100 million in sales and getting to network with some of these big online entrepreneurs, I know people have different opinions of Ty, but the question stands is like being around all these mega successful people that I know you've gotten to know, what are some of the common denominators that you found among the biggest thinkers or the people that end up doing have the biggest success in business? What are some of those common denominators?
So the most common thing is work ethic is by far the most common thing I see with really high level achievers. They don't ever stop working. Never. Number two, they're constantly educating themselves. They're all like, you know, I've told you before, I study like crazy. I'm constantly studying, constantly. How can I get better? How can I get better? So I see that commonly, especially with Ty. He's constantly studying. The other thing is they're very to the point, which the really good ones, right? They go, okay, this is what I want, and this is X, and this is what I'm willing to pay, right?
Mm-hmm. It's very black and white. They don't get lost in the words.
And there is jumble, because I think that happens with, it's just human nature, day to day. There's things that'll distract. But for the most part, they know their mission. They know what they want to do. Lastly, I think a lot of the really good ones are loyal. They're super loyal. They're loyal to their family. They're loyal to their friends. You can just see it in the people that they love and care about come within that journey too. There's very few, like the really good ones that I've met that are like, don't have that dynamic near them. Like, and it's the same with me. Like I have my family and friends near me on my journey. And so I see that a lot. I think too, like a lot of them are not afraid to say, I don't know how to do this. And you're smarter than me. Tell me what I should do. Right. That humbleness, even though they're a lot of these guys are way more successful than me, they're willing to go, let me analyze with you, allow you to say your opinion, your expertise, your analysis, and let's break it down together. And that's really amazing. Because sometimes I meet people that are, I don't want to say inferior or less experienced than me, and they're like the opposite. They're like, oh, you're fucking wrong, man. Like, that's not it, you know? And it's like, and I don't understand, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand that logic. Like, you're going to pay someone for expertise and then not tell them, oh, you're wrong, you know? You're not going to listen to at least the analysis of it all. And then lastly, I think they're willing to still risk. Like, they're still willing to go out there and you know, build this thing that they're building, even though they probably don't have to, right? They're still, you know, betting on themselves and betting on the future of what they're building. So I see that a lot too.
Dude, I love that. Now, what's next for Michael Gonzales, having you know, had this experience and learning all these things in business as the landscape changes? What do you see yourself most interested in now? You know, going into things like Web3. I don't know if you have an interest in that stuff. I know you're a little bit in crypto and you know, the changing landscape of social media, internet marketing, products and services online, right? The recession we're in, right? Biden doesn't want to admit it, but like there's clearly a massive change that's happening in the industry. What for you do you see on the horizon as some of the biggest opportunities to get into industry wise? Like, what advice would you give to people to navigate the coming months and years?
I still, like, for me, like your first question, I still think my future has to do with how do I work with companies on the fundamentals of building really good brands, right? I'm still obsessed with that. I still love storytelling. I still love the idea of like, how can we take this and make it resonate with as many people as possible? But also bring the fundamentals to companies. A lot of companies don't have them. They don't have the systems. They don't have the breakdown of the necessary how to go from 100 million to 200 million. Maybe they're at 100, but they could easily be at 200. And even I love talking to early entrepreneurs too. So I kind of do coaching, I kind of do consulting, kind of a little bit both, because I kind of like both worlds.
Mhm.
I like the world of like, companies that are already operating, that already have a budget, that are already, full steam ahead, and they just want to be better. Love to sit down at the chessboard, analyze the game, right? At the same token, I love talking to early entrepreneurs because I get to taste that, like I said, like that early vibe, that early energy of I'm afraid, but I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to do it. I love that shit.
Yeah. The
So
hunger.
I love talking to early entrepreneurs. How can we be better? How can we be great? How can we imitate, the great ones that have already done it? So I love that part too. But, we've talked about this before. I love to get into like the motivational psyche aspect, the coaching of how to get the best out of people, because I don't know if this is like a blessing or a curse or whatever way you want to look at it. But when I interact with people, I want to elevate them, right? Just by natural means of like, how can I help somebody be better? How can I make you great? And I love that part. And it doesn't necessarily keep me in a box of like, oh, Michael, the fit guy, e-com is the only thing we can talk about. Because I think it requires for you to go elevate yourself to a higher energy or higher economic condition or whatever your goal set is. That lever, I feel like I really know how to help people be better. How can we look at what you're doing and find the necessary steps that I can help you make that belief true, right? And I think every person I've ever come across and they come around me, it's impossible to spend a little bit of time with me and not want to be better and not want to really put yourself in a better condition or to work, because a lot of times for me, I don't feel like I'm great. So I'm constantly working on myself because I think that great never really comes, right? Like you're just always trying to sharpen the tool. And I'm always doing that. So when you get around me and you see that, oh shit, Mike really does that every single day. And I like to like, how do I do that with other people? So I'm kind of like thinking about that stuff too. As far as like what people can focus on for the future, I still think data acquisition is super important. How to make companies understand, the human aspect, the psychological aspect of the interaction between a brand and the consumer. How do you share that value system? How do you do that through social media? Having a voice? Is it podcasting? Is it video? There's so many channels to pick from. I think anybody today, even if let's say like you're an English major, right? You can become a storyteller for brands, write up all these wild stories, and then you go pitch it as like, okay, these are like mini movies for your brand. Look at Ryan Reynolds. Like he's doing that with his all his brands are like these storytelling. Obviously he has a celebrity status that helps elevate his story. But if you look at it, in the end of the day, he's just a storyteller, right? And people love that. So how do you bring that within? I still think a lot of business is still old school stuff. It's still the same. It's still people.
It's just new formats and mediums, but the same premise, the same skeleton.
Yeah, it's still the same fundamentals that you have to do. So if you can become obsessed with those things, and then on the opposite end, right, like the technological, what's next, right? Is it AI? Is it AI driven? E-commerce? Is it AI driven? Is it the point where it's going to be where a consumer is just texting the business saying, hey, bro, I need another bag. They don't even go to the website, And how do you make that where it becomes automatic, or even to the point where the phone knows that you need that said item before you even go to buy it? The future is really interesting because I feel like it's obviously going to be data driven, artificial intelligence because people, think of like Skynet, It's really statistics. I feel like it's just a set parameter a person does every single day. Like every day you brush your teeth with this brand, every day you put on this, every day you do this, every day, and the computer slowly learns your day, and then months and years. Like I've heard like Facebook can predict someone dying from a certain period of time, or like a relationship breaking, right? Like they already know like the sequences of like how somebody's going to break them, so they know. So I think the same thing is going to start applying to like e-commerce and just brand building. How does that happen? I also think there's a huge opportunity for people to help other people make content. I still think that's really broken because even myself trying to make content, I have a hard time sometimes just sitting in front of the camera. How do we make that process? Like with AI, like, oh, you sit down and automatically you have, a topic to talk about within a sequence and you can make something that's really good. So imagine that at scale, you build a software that allows, or maybe it's software and a device, like it's hardware Like, I think that's also like the mediums are still not quite right. Because I feel like even this setup right now that we're in, the studio, you have a mic, you have someone that's technologically understanding how cameras work and audio works.
It's primitive, archaic.
It's just
in 10 or 15 years, it'll be totally archaic.
Yeah. It's not user friendly. Like my mom, she can do it, but only from a cell phone perspective. But then the quality goes down. Like, how do you elevate the quality and still make it ease of use? But also at the same token, how do you get the person to talk and make content that's quality and actually publishable? So I think there's opportunities in that.
What do you think makes a good brand overall, from what you've learned, selling, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of not only your own product, but being involved with other brands, seeing how they do? Overall, there's themes, whether personal or product. What do you think are the core ingredients or the formula, the recipe of a great brand online?
The number one thing as the founder is really giving a shit, like really caring about what you're delivering. Someone is going to buy that from you, whatever it is, product, service. Really giving a shit. Like, really, for like the first couple years, I was constantly calling, emailing my customers, texting them. Hey, I just want to say thank you. That resonate. Like, I appreciate you elevating my family. This is really big. A lot of people have become like robots. Like, I say it again and again. I go to companies, I evaluate their companies, and literally the first typical analysis is, where's the human? Where's the person involved in here? Who's saying thank you to the person that's giving you the opportunity to take their hard-earned income for whatever product or service you're giving? So really, like, thank you is really big. Really giving a shit. Really putting what you're gonna say, like being a man of your word. Always trying to elevate your services. Like, be better. Like, every time the customer comes back, they have a better experience. Mind you, I was selling tea. Like, how much improvement you think? Like if you look back at the history of Fit Tea. Like, it was a rudimentary website, really bad customer service, really slow lead times. Quality was always good. The tea was the same all the way to the end, right? From the time I've owned it, it was always a really high quality tea. So it was always, that was the premise. But then the bags changed. The design made better. We got better at customer service, faster, better design, better packaging, better. And then eventually got into tea bags. And you elevate yourself always and put it back into the business. And that resonates within the brand. And then I think core story and messaging is super, super important. On a marketing channel, understand your customers, really learn who is the person that's going to buy from you. And really build that, the rapport and relationship. Because if you can do those things, it's pretty much an unbeatable path to being, really successful in e-com or brand building.
Yeah, no, I love that, dude. Well said. All right, bro. Well, I got one more question for you before we wrap up here, because this was really good stuff. Is looking back to the young Michael Gonzales, whether it be a man or woman at any age, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, teens, 60s, whatever, it doesn't matter. If they have a dream to start a business, but maybe they're stuck because of limiting beliefs, limiting judgments on themselves, maybe past failures or experiences kind of weighing on them heavy, what advice would you give to that man or woman around the world who's listening to this interview right now, who's been wanting to take action on that dream but is feeling stuck, blocked? What advice would you give them to kind of get out of their own way and finally take that imperfect action?
So a lot of times I think about the future. Not like I'll answer it in the retrospect, like if it was Michael from 2013. And I'll answer it to the Michael now. So Michael 2013 would say, "Fuck it, go for it," because this is your time, this is your moment, right? And totally risk averse, right? Fuck it, just go for it. And then now, done it. I think you have to think about your mortality. It is what it is. We all have a ticking time, and we are not certain that tomorrow is ours, right? The present is ours. This is our moment, and I'm sharing this moment with you. Super big blessing. And you have to look at it in the same token with your opportunities in this life, because tomorrow isn't promised. So today you can make that choice to say, hey, I've decided I'm going to do this thing. And I always bring up the word decision. I love decision as a word because it has incision. Mm-hmm. So that's like a deep thing to think about, because a lot of times people want to do everything, right? And I made a decision, and I made an incision into my life that Fit Tea was going to be the thing I was doing. I was cut off all the other stuff, all the other distractions, and this was the intense focus I was going to do. And so, like I tell people all the time, make the decision that you're going to do this thing, and let the path come. And even if it's failure, right? Like you lose in that endeavor, but that path, you made the decision to do it and you went for it. And what if you do it? You become successful at the thing you did. So if you're feeling stuck, you're feeling lost, you don't know where to start, just make the decision on what you want to do, even if it's fake. You put it on paper, you manifest that thing, say, hey, this is what I want to do. You set a date, you start telling other people I'm going to do it. And that simple process, even if you don't go past that moment, at least you said, okay, this is what I wanted. Because a lot of times people don't even know what they want.
Right. They don't write it down. They don't decide.
They don't decide. They'll make the decision to jump in. And hindsight, I tell people all the time, be careful what you wish for too. Because a lot of people look from, perspective, the money I made and all the access I had. And, money's great. I tell people all the time, it's a means to an end. But the road travel is the reward. The actual path of walking, I would do Fit Tea again 1,000 times, even though there was some of the hardest moments of my life, some of the most hardest moments of my life. The path is the reward. So stop, a lot of times people are just like, I got to make money. And yes, I understand economically we have to make money. We have to make gains in our life, but it's really the path that's amazing. Like the stuff that you do, the interactions with people, you see your painting come to life, and that's the reward in the end. So start thinking about that part. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Okay, what's that mean?
The process, yeah.
And learn and start studying from the greats. We're not the first. There's so many good guys, and there's a bunch of people that I swear, if you just text them, DM them, they'll give you advice. Even me, if you go to my Instagram and send me a message, I might take a while to message you back, but for the most part, I answer people's DMs. And a lot of people don't even do that.
At Fit Tea, hit them up.
Yeah, at TCEO.
Sorry, at TCEO. At TCEO, yeah. Hit them up. That's right. Fit Tea's a product. Now, I want to also say before we wrap up every game, we play a game called First Things First. So the way the game works is I'm going to rifle off a quick word or phrase, and then you just tell me the first word or phrase that comes to mind.
That's scary.
So think of it as like a word relation game.
This is like psychological stuff. All right.
Yes, exactly.
Menacing. Wait. So can I do it too?
You can do it back if you want. Yeah, you can do it back. We've never done that before, but we could do it. So for the first one, I'm going to rifle off a word, and you just tell me the first word or phrase that comes to mind. The only rule is that you can't repeat yourself twice.
Ooh, that's okay.
Makes
I
sense?
like this game. This is fun.
Okay, cool. And it'll be themed from stuff from the interview. All right. So number one is your first $1 million in the bank.
Oh, jeez. Unbelievable.
When you guys hit your biggest revenue day, what was it and how did it feel?
I knew it wouldn't happen again.
Mm-hmm.
I knew we wouldn't be able to top it. It was just too ridiculous.
What was it?
So the $720,000, I think it was.
Wow.
And I remember telling my dad, I was like underneath like a fan. I was like, let's take this in. I guess that's the word I'll say. Take it in, because I was like, I literally turned to my parents. I'm like, there's no way I'm top. There's no way I can do this again. It was just I knew the landscape was changing. So I was just like, let's sit down and look at this for a little bit.
How'd you make $720,000 in one day?
I spammed Instagram. That's what happened. Like in all honesty, it was that, I bought the internet. Like I owned Instagram for like a day. It was Black Friday. And the craziest thing is I planned only for 7 days. Like I woke up like on a Sunday. I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do it. I'm going to make this like the most craziest shit ever. Right. And I went on a spending spree. Like I remember there's another like podcast I did with a guy named Eli, and he was like a guy that gets celebrities and stuff. And he always say like, Michael, and he talks like that. Michael just calls you up on a whim. It's like, let's spend $1 million. And I legitimately did that for that, like for such a big campaign all at once. But you literally would have been on Instagram at that time, and you would have scrolled, and every other photo would have been something Fit Tea related.
Yeah, you just went ham that day.
I just went really hard, and so super like unbelievable. Like again, I repeated myself, but more like, let's take this in, because I don't know if I can repeat this.
Yeah. 3 would be your worst day in business.
Worst day in business. Oh, man. NAD, dealing with like government. Like we just got too big.
Yeah.
Too big for what we were doing. Like, and I didn't have the infrastructure ready for like the legal part. Yeah, like it was probably the hardest thing was like dealing with like government stuff and like that kind of deal. Financial loss. I did a product I probably shouldn't have done, and it was just like outside the scope of like the products that we were known for. So if I had to say like a singular word, worst day in business would be, I don't even know how to describe it. Like not being to your best, not delivering on what you were known for. Because like I felt like Fit Tea was like this perfect product, and like we sold like an inferior product. So I guess inferior would be like the word.
Yeah, makes sense. Best advice you've ever been given in business?
When you give, you get.
Worst advice you've ever been given in business?
Don't give any money away.
Like to influencers or whatever at that time.
Yeah, I mean, like you go kind of crazy when you're trying to like grow, and you just sometimes forget the faucet is running, and $1 million can slip through your fingers so quickly. And like worst advice wise too, I feel like some people are just too focused on like the business part too. Like there's more to it. Like there's so much fun you can have when you're doing it, and like you get lost in like the stress of like building a business when you should like pull back and have a good time with it.
Enjoy it a little bit. Biggest limiting belief you had to overcome to have success in business?
Oh man, that's tough. Probably fear. Fear is a pretty big factor for me.
Fear of success?
Just more of like disappointing people was always a big problem with me because I'm kind of like a people pleaser. So fear of like disappointing like my family, or fear like disappointing my staff. Fear was always this big aspect that kept me up at night. Like, is this the right move? Is this, so like definitely that's a limiting belief when you're acting in fear, not in faith, So a lot of times it was fear that would stop me from doing something that we probably should have done, or fear in a sense of like growth. So yeah, definitely fear would be the big one.
What about the biggest misconception about making money that either most people have or you had?
So for most people, they think it leads to happiness. That's not how it works. For me, it was more, I didn't realize how many snakes would come out of the grass. Like how many people would come after you. You don't see it. You don't realize it. They come with the smile on the face. And in reality, they're there for, financial gain. And so that's, by far one of the big ones. Like if you can't see it coming, but be prepared for it. Like if I was giving advice to people now and you winning and someone's acting a little too nice and they're new within your life, you really start being logical of their reasons. And those people will do it for years. They will invest time. They will do it, and they will go the distance for that financial gain. Which is at the same token, I always say, like, obviously people want to elevate themselves, but it's when they use the friendship. They use the friendship, and they get to a new place. You elevate them, and then the friendship dissolves once they get what they wanted. That's the part that's crazy. So like, that money gain, like be careful, like again, be careful what you wish for, because it comes with side effects.
The importance of coaching mindset. You talked about like personal development. You talked about having mentors and coaching, and you also mentoring, consulting different businesses as well. But just the whole spectrum of that dynamic, how important has that been?
So the definitely the mindset stuff in the beginning were really big. I wish I'd have been a little bit more disciplined during the ride with it. Like I did it intensely before the business exploded, and the business exploded, and I didn't take it as seriously. And
you're like, I don't need it anymore.
Yeah, like, I got the magic now. Yeah. And I thought I knew everything too. So I wish I would have had coaches during that time frame. It was still really new to me, like to have a coach or like a consultant, someone to help you. And I had like little bites, people that were successful around me that were like, oh, you should do this, like chill, And but now I look back, I think it's like, especially if you're doing, let's say like you're doing a business that's doing $1 million a year. That means you got money to afford to go get somebody that can help you just look over your shit. Like have someone, second eyes over and they're credible and knowledgeable and understand like how to build a business. They can help you more than just say, buy traffic from Facebook. They can help you with this, keeping this right, keeping you off a path that you might go down because you didn't have someone to say, hey, I've been there. You're not gonna like it. The results of that. So don't do it. So if you're doing that, definitely get coaching, definitely get consulting. And then if you're doing serious numbers, you should have like a caveat. This guy's good for this, and this guy's good for that. And I can call this guy, and I can text this guy.
Have a team.
Have a team to really help. Like Ty, that's one of the things I'm so impressed with, because I even myself, I'm always trying to say, how can I get better? How can I learn? Whatever. He's got like a plethora, and he does it like at a whim. Oh, I need to have someone that knows all this, and he'll just like email them and text them all at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I think there's never a level where you can't get more, help from somebody that's knowledgeable, and not necessarily that they're better than you, but at least they're knowledgeable enough to where they can help you what you're really doing. So I think it's super important.
I love that, man. And then last but not least is, and this is a final word relation, but also I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, what you hope people who are listening to this interview take away from it and go to apply to their life right after it.
Honestly, I'm just a guy that was born in Lorain, Ohio. I had nothing. I got educated, school of thought. I'm real pro education, whether that's from traditional means or you're self-educated. Get yourself in a book, really study, learn from the greats, and ultimately believe that you can do it. Whatever it is, whatever that crazy idea is, just believe that you can do it and anything is achievable. If I could do it and do some amazing things, I 100% believe that you can do it too. So,
my man, Mike. Thank you
sir.
so much for being on the pod today. Where can people find you if they want to follow you more and connect with you
Instagram
further?
Instagram is probably the best place. Is TCEO. I'm actually kind of active all of a sudden on Twitter too. So my username is TCEO, like 2 O's. I couldn't get the username, but you can ultimately just contact me on Instagram at TCEO. So
perfect. I love it. Well, guys, thank you so much for enjoying this episode. Make sure to go follow Mike there. As always, live strong, live with passion, and go out there and pursue those dreams. Until next time, live strong, live with passion, and we'll see you guys inside the next inspiring video.